tax rules or tax laws, I don't know that that's the best way to go about it, because by the time anybody gets to the point where they want to settle a case out of courts, they're already in a pretty desperate situation, and therefore trying to put roadblocks in their path might not be the most caring way or the most friendly way of getting them to comply with that law. So I don't know what the broader implications of that is, and but just right off the top of my head, I would think that there's a better way of achieving what it is you want to get, which is whether it's more people to comply with tax laws or whether it's less people following like out of court settlements. There are much better ways of going about that problem. And again, I think our instinctive way of just saying, hey, you can't do this, that regulation shouldn't always be about what you can't do, right? Regulation should be about how can we achieve certain things for the most people in the most frictionless way possible, right? So either you're protecting a certain class of people or you're making certain things available to more people. But the instinct of just saying, well, no, you can't do this. No, you can't do this. That's a very simplistic way of looking at your job as a regulator. But again, I can't claim to speak authoritatively about this this aspect of the issue, right? So that's my thoughts on it.
That roughly mirrors what I think too. My take on this issue is that first and foremost, an African government has to be realistic about the kind of population that it presides over. An African government has to understand that it is not an emperor, that it's a democratically elected entity, which behoves on it to act in a way that is fundamentally friendly towards its people. Because
right.
I get the distinct impression that a lot of African governments use a very bullying kind of approach to dealing with business and with their citizens, which ends up being counterproductive. I'm going to read some tweets now. Some of them are direct responses to the show. Some of them are on the Kenyan hashtag Save My Job, I Lost My Job KE, and I Lost My Job. So this one from Joseph Oneto reads, Kenya needs to guarantee a business lifeline to investors to eradicate the uncertainties in Kenya's business environment. This way, Kenyans won't worry about being laid off. Mwangi Kamau says, there are no jobs in Kenya. The few who have tried investing the little they got, like me, and don't believe in bribing their way around are having it rough with the hostile business environment, courtesy of the few old chaps who have held on to the few government positions. Strong words there from Mwangi. This one from Deogracius Magero reads, with the ever-increasing tax rates, the general business environment in Kenya deteriorates, leaving investors with no option but to depart. This could be curbed if the government of Kenya embraced genuine private-public partnerships. At the end of the day, it is the Kenyan people that suffer job losses. I'm also going to play a couple of voice notes for our audience that have been sent into the number that I read out earlier. And we're going to hear from a Kenyan TV station reporting live on the situation on the ground. We'll be right back.
I saw what you were talking about regarding, Buhari saying that the statistics and figures from the World Bank and the IMF and so on and so forth are fake and blah, blah, blah. To be honest with you, I feel like those statistics and predictions are more on the conservative side. Yesterday I was watching a YouTube video from the Gates Foundation, and they projected where Nigeria was heading with our current poverty crisis and housing crisis and education crisis that no one even seems to talk about anymore. It just becomes the norm. And I have to say the future is bleak for Nigeria. And looking at the budgets, it doesn't seem to look like it's going to get better. So I guess what I just want to chip in today is that if you are a young Nigerian right now, you have one of two options. Number one, get out, which is the easy option. And number two, we need to start to wrestle power from these old men because they are stealing the future of our country. They are pocketing it in their agbadas and they are taking it with them to the grave. They are taking the future of Nigeria to the grave.
You're still listening to Red Tape Africa, and we're taking some feedback from our listeners this afternoon. You just heard the voice notes that was sent in. I'm going to read out some more tweets. So this tweet from Soji Akinlabi reads, "Are you saying that you have to be tax compliant before you have access to justice?" Question. And that's actually an angle that we didn't even look at it from, that whether or not you are tax compliant, you are still a citizen of that country. You are still entitled to justice. So actually, does the Kenyan government have a right to effectively restrict your ability to get justice and tie it to presenting a tax compliance certificate? Something we need to think about.
That's why I'll be happy to classify this as an unintended consequence, because it'll be tragic to, if that was an intentional policy on their part. They're saying that if you're not tax compliant, then you have no right to have an out of court settlement. So you're forced to do like the long, expensive court process. If that's intentional, then that would be really tragic, and the Kenyan government has to think about who exactly it wants to serve their interests, right? Because if your interest is to serve the people, then you can't make it where unless you pay your taxes, we don't allow you to have access to certain legal entitlements as a citizen. That's a slippery slope. That's a very dangerous slippery slope.
I'm going to read out some more tweets using the various hashtags. This one from Ephraim Muriki. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Sorry if you're listening, Ephraim. I'm obviously not good at pronouncing Kenyan names. It reads, Kenya created a hostile business environment for international companies so that the dynasties can benefit from their exit. Kenyans, why do we even have such leaders? That's a bit of an accusation there, but I mean, who knows? Africa is a place where anything is possible, both for good and for otherwise.
True.
This one from Brutal Honest 3 says, so the UAE private sector, that's United Arab Emirates, has added 40,000 jobs in 4 months, while Kenyans have lost close to 10,000 jobs in the last quarter alone. Wow. I'm going to need to see the statistics on that. It seems that the business and investment environment is too toxic in Kenya. Now, before we do anything else, and before we close on the show, I need to get your comments on this. So I know that you have a bit of an insight by virtue of what you do on macroeconomic indices across Africa. And I know that as relatively badly as Nigeria is doing, Nigeria is actually still doing better than a lot of countries on the continent in some respects. So do you think that actions like this and the direction that countries like Kenya are taking are going to make them significantly worse off than even we are in the long run, or is this just rich people problems compared to ours?
I think that first off, from where I stand, I can't say that we're doing significantly better than many. I'm struggling to think of any country in Africa right now.
Okay, let me qualify that.
Right.
Let me say we have a significantly bigger economy.
You're right. Okay, yes, that's completely accurate.
Proportionally, we're doing worse in many respects.
Right,
yes, but
right.
yeah, we have it.
Since we're coming very close to the end of this show, I do want to highlight some things, which is that in a lot of ways, Kenya is growing faster than us, but in a lot of ways, we're also still doing better than them in terms of our market being bigger. And so Kenya, while we, from where we stand, are looking to keep our growth trajectory up, Kenya should be thinking about how to close the gap between itself and other, bigger economies on the continent. So the way they are going right now would not be the best way. But then again, even in Nigeria, we have our own problems, and so we also need to think about it from a government standpoint. How can we continue to, grow faster? Just because we're the biggest doesn't mean we've arrived. People are catching up, and some are speeding past. So across the continent, we need to think about how governments could be better partners to businesses, not obstacles. That's where I want to end on.
Right. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to conclude the show and introduce next week's show. Be right back.
Business in Africa can be complicated. Politicians sometimes create circumstances that hurt businesses and consumers, and then they hide behind a wall of to avoid taking responsibility for their bad economic policies. On Red Tape Africa, we slice through the jargon, drawing a direct link between government actions and their effects on businesses across the continent. Red Tape Africa is where we break down the jargons of business and economic policies in plain English so that you can understand how the impacts on your business and on you. Join us every Tuesday and Thursday on Africa Business Radio as we deliver an impartial verdict on these policies. Red Tape Africa, economic policy impact in plain English.
You've been listening to Red Tape Africa. This has been the second episode. I'm your host, David Hundeyin, and with me on the show today, I had
Eke Urum, CEO of Cash Estates, and we definitely encourage you all to check us out at mycashestate.com. That's mycashestate.com, where we're doing dollar-denominated investments. Thank you.
Don't forget to like and follow our pages on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Red Tape Africa and at Africa Business Radio. Next week, the show continues Tuesday at 2 p.m. This time from Kenya, I'm moving all the way down south to the land of Mandela. I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag yet. You're just going to have to tune in on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Thanks for listening, everyone. Join you next week. Thank you.
You're listening to Africa Business Radio, where you get up-to-date insights on the Africa business landscape. Log on to www.africabusinessradio.com. Your favorite shows are available as podcasts. Download them on our website and mobile app. Africa Business Radio, towards a profitable Africa.
Doing business is one thing. Making it profitable is another. We are the urban voice of the new age of entrepreneurs in Africa. Africa Business Radio, towards a profitable Africa.